soon as I lay down, all I see are those kids' faces. How long you been doing this? 12 years. How do you do it?
It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade. What if this was your daughter?
The Drew Mariani Show is on Relevant Radio.
You are going to love the conversation I am about to have. I saw a film last night that it impacted me profoundly, and I've talked a lot about human trafficking. It often spikes right before the Super Bowl. We know the drug crisis that we have in our country today, and you think that's the number one problem. You're going to be surprised at some of the numbers you hear. There's a new film out I want to get you connected to. Before I do that, let me just give you some perspective. Let me give you some numbers. The latest statistics, this comes from the International Labor Organization, the Walk Free Foundation, and the International Organization for Migration. It shows that at any given time in 2021, 28 million people were in forced labor. And of these, a little more than 17 million were exploited in the private sector, 4 million are in forced labor imposed by the state, and just over 6 million are in forced commercial sexual exploitation. And children, of course, are caught up in the horror of this, and they're the easiest ones to get and to exploit. But what's most horrific is when they're used as sex slaves. And there are an estimated 2 million children worldwide right now in that awful situation. It's unimaginable. The U.S., unfortunately, the top destination for those kids in America, is one of the top buyers of them overseas. It's $150 billion a year industry. And breaking that industry down takes a lot of determination, but it will also take, I think, opening people's eyes. I don't think people recognize the gravity, the enormity of what is currently happening. There's a new film out. It's going to be released July 4th, so mark your calendar. It's called Sound of Freedom. It stars Jim Caviezel and Eduardo Verástegui. Jim, of course, you may know, he played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, also starred as John Reese, series person of interest. Eduardo, you might remember him from that film Bella, as well as Paul Blart, The Mall Cop 2. They both joined me today, and it's a delight to be able to talk to them about not only what's happening globally, but what you and I can do to make a difference. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello, how are you, everybody?
It's great to talk with you today. I had the privilege of getting to view the film. I watched it last night, so it's still very fresh in my mind. And I know about it. You have been promoting it. But there are a lot of people listening who know nothing about Sound of Freedom. So maybe as we begin our conversation, we can just do a very simple primer. Tell us a little bit about the film, about who it features, and the fact that this is based on a true story.
The real simple version of this is Tim Ballard, Homeland Security agent, a former CIA, is taking down these big traffickers. He finds one of the worst traffickers at our south border, one of the worst you've ever seen, Ernst Lipachinski. They take him down, and they find this little boy. Little boy turns to him and says, 5-year-old boy says, will you save my sister? And it burns in his heart. He doesn't know what to do other than talk to his wife, and he sells everything, and he goes down to find this one little kid, this little girl. And that's essentially the story. It has some biblical things in the background that you feel like, but it's not something that beats you over the head. It's one of the best films I've done since The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah, the cinematography was fantastic. The acting was phenomenal too, and it told a very riveting story. It's eye-opening. How did you and Eduardo connect? How did you guys decide to work on this project?
Well, thank you for this interview. We're very grateful for this support. We've been working for 8 years in this film for 2 hours of your time, and I hope this movie will touch the hearts of the audience when it comes out 4th of July. I met Tim Ballard and his team 8 years ago in Los Angeles, California, and when I learned what they were doing, traveling around the world undercover, rescuing children, kidnapped for sexual exploitation, of course I was in shock. And Tim told me, it's very sad, I'm telling you, but it's more sad now that you know it if you do nothing. I knew at that time that I had to put pause in everything that I was doing so I can dedicate my entire life to end child trafficking by producing this movie called Sound of Freedom. And the first question I asked him after he told me the story is, first question that I asked him is, who do you want to play you? And he mentioned right away, Jim Caviezel. He's a man of God.
I'm a big fan of the Passion of Christ. He's Jesus Christ, and I want Jesus to save the children, so he should be the actor in this movie. Yeah. I knew Jim, of course, we're friends, and I texted him and I asked to meet him, and I met with him. I shared the story with Alejandro Monteverde, which is the writer and the director. And after the 20 minutes of the conversation, he said, I'm in, send me the script, I'm in. We're in this together, and that's how we all became one.
Yeah. Well, a beautiful combination of talent, and I know that Eduardo, you and Jim, both deeply spiritual, very devout, good Catholic men, and I'm rooting for this film. I hope people will come out and see it, because my big takeaway, my producer today, when I walked in the studio, she says, well, I didn't get to see it yet. She says, but what really impacted you? And I said, what really impacted me, my takeaway was the scale of this. Human trafficking is a $150 billion a year business. That is staggering. Top destination for human trafficking, the U.S. We're one of the largest consumers of it, which is really quite tragic. And the fact that there are more humans trapped in slavery today than at any other time in human history, including when slavery was illegal, that to me was stunning. Millions of these slaves are children. What's your takeaway from those numbers? I mean, why the appetite for this? What's feeding it? Is it algorithms? Is it porn? Is it open borders? Why are we dealing with such an epidemic in terms of these types of numbers?
People need to look back from biblical times. They've been doing this for eons. Let's go back to Pharaoh. Let's go back to Herod. The difference now is we have more slaves now than we ever had in all history.
That's crazy.
Of slaves. Okay? Our point is like, how can we make this highly entertaining where everybody wants to see this film, just not because the content they're not interested in. Yeah. Nobody want to see that. But if you say, look at a movie like Taken with a huge heart, that's essentially what you're looking at here. Artistically done by Alejandro Monteverde. I'm going to tell you, Eduardo Verástegui is nothing short of a hero. We were down there shooting in the middle of the jungle. I mean, right where the cartel are.
Wow.
And, to get me down there, Eddie will tell you this. When we were down there, I was like, hey, my wife is really concerned about me shooting down there. I mean, and then Tim goes, hey, tell him he's got a group of Navy SEALs around him and he'll be good. And one day I'm looking around, I'm on the phone with my wife. I don't see anybody around because they were on a mission. They saved over 100 kids.
Wow.
They were doing a mission while we were down there.
Wow.
At one point, we lost all our money because Fox got bought out by Disney, so Disney is holding the purse strings here. We lose the film. Eddie goes out and gets us $5 million to save the movie.
Wow.
You weren't supposed to see this. This is a movie they do not want you to see.
Yeah.
And we're fastly selling out our theaters right now, and we need the people to call to get more theaters. It's like very similar to what happened on The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
We were running out of theaters, and then people were calling in and saying, hey, we want to buy a whole theater. Essentially, we just picked up 300 theaters yesterday. But we're outselling Indiana Jones right now 3-1. But we're fastly coming up to a wall that we're going to run into if we don't get more theaters. And eventually what will happen is people go to the theater. They won't go to our film, but they'll end up going to Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's true. One, it's a good problem to have, but I think people are going to respond, and the numbers are going to talk. I know you want to get 2 million tickets for the 2 million trafficked children that are out there.
That's correct.
What's the best way to do that? How do we connect? Is there a website? One website I was given was soundoffreedom.com. Is that the best way to connect, to get tickets, let people know that they want to participate?
That's the best way. You can visit the Angel Studios app as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of information there where you can, buy tickets for you, or you can buy tickets for other people that they cannot afford to buy a ticket, so more people can see this movie, so millions of people can see this movie. This is a war. This is a war between good and evil.
Yeah.
I mean, Disney is trying to corrupt your children.
Yep.
And Disney is like the Goliath of our times right now. And this movie is Little David. And Little David wants to save the children. Son of Freedom wants to save the children. So it's up to us, it's up to the audience, if we want to end the story the same way how David and Goliath ended.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's a spiritual work in addition to just a humanitarian work. I know when you were shooting The Passion, there was a lot of weird spiritual attacks that you came under. I'm sure with Bella, the same thing took place when you dealt with life. As a former documentarian, I encountered the same things with films I've done on Marian apparitions. I wrote a book on Divine Mercy, the same thing. You can't believe the spiritual attacks. I'm curious. I know you said this was due out 5 years ago. It's now finally being released. What type of spiritual warfare did you encounter? I know there probably were a lot of obstacles in the completion of the film, not just with Disney. Anything you can speak of?
From day one was like, first of all, when I met Tim Ballard and I told, a lot of my friends, I met this hero, I want to make a movie about his life, it's about this and it's about that. The first thing I heard is, no, don't do it.
Wow.
This is too dangerous. This is too dangerous, And I said, it's more dangerous not to do it in the long term. We have to do it. So from day one was always, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. It was like fear. And then raising the funds for this movie was very, very difficult. It took us a lot of time. We ended up paying, the last debt just months ago. It was 8 years of struggling with this movie. But you know what? It's worth it, because what if this is your child? You will stop everything you're doing. You will hope the whole world will stop everything they're doing so they can help you to find your child. Why do we have to wait until this tragedy comes to our house so we can wake up? Why don't we wake up now and treat every child as a precious child of God, and we fight for their freedom?
Yeah.
That's what motivates me to do what I'm doing right now. That's what motivates Jim and Tim and Alejandro and the whole team. And now the audience is participating. The audience wants to be part of this story about saving children, ending child trafficking. That's our goal. I'm going to dedicate, just like Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel and everyone in the team, our entire life to end this nightmare. Yeah. God's children are not for sale.
Yeah, I thought it was a very powerful line. And another thing, Jim, I know this film has profoundly touched you. You could see the emotion in some of the interviews you've done. There's a great line that you quote at the end, quoting Steve Jobs, where you say that the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision and the values of an entire generation that's to come. And I could not agree with you more on that. Now, you're calling all those who are going to come to see the film to be storytellers. So it's really our duty and our obligation to get out, to let others know about the film, and to really pull back the veil on what is a modern-day human tragedy, the sexual slavery that we see so many children subjected to. And I think it's only going to get worse unless something is done about it. What are you asking listeners to do, and how urgent is this call?
I say that we're at a point right now where we're going to lose everything. Our republic, we don't have a south border right now. Yeah, right. We'll lose everything if people don't make a move here. And I understand why they feel the way they do. They're scared, but allow God. And this film does that. This film has a power. When you go in, your heart is filled on fire, like you were in The Passion when you watch that movie, and it causes you to weep. But there's a point where you're not afraid anymore. But certainly our love for God's children has got to be greater than our fear of evil, just as our love of Jesus has got to be greater than our fear of the cross. We're talked about this all the time, but it's time, like 1 James, put your faith into action. Faith without works is dead. And this film has the power. For example, these whistleblowers that I worked with, they will watch this. It has the power where they are not afraid anymore to come forward and give true testimony of what is really going on, especially when you start going into organ harvesting, which is a whole other story. This right now, let's start here with this film. The film is phenomenal. If you love Taken, you'll love this film but it has a big heart and it's honest, and it's one of the best films you'll see in 10 years. Alejandro Monteverdi's work on this is, I'd put him up against anybody. One of the best. I have 2 Academy Award-winning directors that watched this, that said this thing in a real world would win everything. That's how good it is.
Yeah. I'm speaking today with Jim Caviezel and Eduardo Verástegui. They're both in a brand new film called The Sound of Freedom. Are you getting opposition from distributors?
Many of them passed. And they passed because this simple, it's very sad what I'm going to tell you, but that's what happened. That's true. Yeah. They saw the movie. Wow, what a great movie. But you know what? This is not a business for us. So what do you mean business? This is not about business. It's about an opportunity of saving children. There's an opportunity of raising awareness around the world with this movie. And you're already making a lot of money with other movies. Not everything is money. Yeah. But you know what? This is now, the doors were closed. Yeah. And that's where we need to take, either that no as an answer. Okay, you know what? Let's give up. That's it. We don't care about the children anymore. Or what do we do? We keep fighting. Don't give up. Keep fighting. Don't give up. And I can believe that after 8 years of not giving up from day one, all the way until the movie was finished 3 years ago, and all the studios, Netflix, Amazon, everyone passed. And you know what? I won't pass. Yeah. Jim won't pass. Tim Ballard won't pass. Alejandro Monteverde won't pass. And I know the audience won't pass.
I want to say just one thing, please. Sure. Look at the world narrative right now. What do you know? What do you know about Epstein Island?
Yeah.
I took this movie. We showed 1,500 people in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part in the movie where we go to an island and take down a massive operation that occurs on an island. Epstein Island is not the only sex island out there.
Yeah.
Particular part in the movie they were talking, and after the end of the whole 5 showings, I asked them all, what was that particular part? And they all started saying Epstein Island. The public is very, very aware of why. Who went to that island? Why did they go there?
Mm-hmm.
And so this film opens up a conversation that they do not want to have. That is the bottom line to this. As I saw these people walking out of the screen, they were bawling.
Yeah.
And so here we are in this conversation. And the world is about ready to find out. In truth, when the public wakes up to this whole thing and sees films like this film particularly, people won't be able to walk down the street ever again. 850,000.
850,000. Wow.
850. That was the testimony that Ms. Rojas gave on April 26th. 850,000 children. That's shameful.
That's unbelievable.
How does the 3-letter agencies not know about this? Well, yeah, you see, you can't do that. And that's why this film has that power to bring the whistleblowers forward to say this is enough. I'm not afraid anymore.
Yeah. 2 million tickets for these 2 million children that are being sexually trafficked. Best place to go, soundoffreedom.com. The movie premieres July 4th, right, in all major theaters around the country. Let me give you final thoughts and final call to action. And again, we have to do our duty. You know, I share your same passion as a Catholic, as a person, you know, who has chosen to live at this particular moment in time. God has given us this particular mission, these gifts, and really this destiny. We've got to do our part. Evil often rises, and it seems formidable, it seems indomitable, but ultimately truth and God's love and mercy prevail. And that's what we're called to be, messengers of that, and make people aware of this horror. So 2 million tickets for 2 million trafficked children, soundoffreedom.com. Let me give you both final thoughts.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much again for this interview, brother. You have to understand one thing. This is a global problem, especially U.S. and Mexico. As you mentioned before, U.S. is the number 1 consumer of child sex in the world. Mexico is the number 1 provider. I'm Mexican. I love my country. I love the United States. This country has been such an amazing blessing in my life. And of course, I understand that there is only one way to end this. Mexico and the U.S. working together to save our children, to heal the wombs of so many children that are being raped 10 to 15 times a day for many years. And if we don't stop this, if we don't do something now, the pain of these children eventually will reach out to all of us. Then we will be living a nightmare that is going to be very hard to wake up again if we don't do something now. We can end this if we all do whatever is in our hands to work together to end this terrible reality.
Thank you, Eduardo. Jim?
This is pointed to all the people that are like, on 4th of July, probably don't want to see a film like this or that during that week. And I'll tell you this film is phenomenal. You're going to laugh. It's a thrill ride. There's all the stuff that you liked and taken, but it's got a much bigger heart.
Wow.
This film has all those things where the culture changes. It's one of the most important films you'll ever see. And it is a film where, you know, I play a hero, a real hero, not a Marvel comic hero. I recently saw a shirt where this guy had, you know, Superman, Aquaman, Batman, and all these guys surrounding Jesus. He's in the middle. And he says, let me tell you how I saved the world.
Wow.
That's why I love this film.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to strongly encourage everyone to get out. We'll put a link up on our social media here for soundoffreedom.com. For those who are listening, please go and see the film, support the film, pay it forward, buy a ticket for someone else, and make others aware of it as well. You'll be glad you did, and you're going to make a difference in countless lives. Eduardo, Jim, thank you for your time. Delight to have you here, and I wish you the very best. Look forward to the next time we can talk.
God bless you, my friend. God bless everyone.
God bless you. That's the Sound of Freedom.